Every single day, roughly 110,000 vehicles cross it. Trucks hauling pharmaceuticals, automobiles, frozen food, military equipment, consumer goods from half the world away. Commuters who've driven it so many times they don't even think about it anymore. They turn up the radio. They check their mirrors. They don't look down. They don't look down at the 220 feet of open air beneath their tires. They don't think about the water moving below, dark and cold and unforgiving. They don't think about the steel holding them up, steel that was designed in an era before computer modeling, before seismic simulation software, before engineers truly understood what decades of punishment could do to a structure this size. They don't think about any of that, but a small group of engineers do, every single day. And what they've found, what they've known for years, what has been quietly escalating behind closed doors in federal agencies and state transportation departments, is something that should make every one of those 110,000 drivers think very carefully about what's holding them up. This is the story of America's most critical bridge, and the hidden weakness that could change everything.
I'm standing on the pedestrian walkway of the Bay Bridge right now. And the first thing that hits you tail, the very first thing that tails, is the sound. It's not traffic noise the way you expect. It's deeper than that. It's almost geological. This entire structure is vibrating. You can feel it in your feet, your knees, your chest. And when you look down over the railing at the water below, you realize very quickly that the thing between you and that drop is a machine. A massive, aging, constantly stressed machine. And right now, it is working harder than most people will ever know.
The San Francisco-Oakland Bay Bridge, at over 4 miles long, it is not just a bridge. It is a lifeline, an economic artery. The single most important piece of infrastructure connecting the Port of Oakland, one of the busiest ports on the entire West Coast, to the financial heart of San Francisco. Remove this bridge from the equation and you don't just inconvenience commuters. You cripple supply chains. You strand emergency services. You cut the economic bloodstream of the entire Bay Area. The numbers are almost incomprehensible. Over $40 billion in goods move through this corridor every single year. The bridge handles more commercial freight traffic than almost any other span in the United States. Every pharmaceutical shipment, every refrigerated container of produce, every piece of automotive equipment, it flows across this bridge. And for decades, engineers have been watching something develop inside its bones. Something they couldn't fully explain. Something that, if it reaches a critical threshold, could have consequences almost too large to speak aloud. Here's where things get dangerous.
I've come down to the base of one of the western anchorage towers of the San Francisco Bay Bridge to look at the maintenance crews who are working here. And the engineering team here has agreed to show me something most people never see. The access hatches, the internal inspection corridors, it's a labyrinth down here. This is it, the places where maintenance crews actually go inside the structure. Their work is vital to keeping it safe. And standing here, looking at this wall of steel, you really feel the history and the immense power of this structure. Steel that was originally installed in 1936. You start to understand something visceral about age, about what time does to metal. The paint is layered like geological strata. You can see decade after decade of recoating. And underneath all of that, there are sections that engineers cannot fully inspect without specialized equipment. Sections where the original steel has never been fully assessed since the day it was placed.
Ship collision. It is the risk that most people never think about, and it is one of the most statistically significant threats to any bridge over navigable water. San Francisco Bay is one of the busiest maritime corridors in the American West. Container ships, bulk carriers, tankers, vessels measuring over 1,000 feet in length and displacing hundreds of thousands of tons. navigate beneath the Bay Bridge multiple times every week. The shipping channels are precisely defined. The pilots are licensed and experienced. The maritime traffic management system is sophisticated. But ships lose power. Ships lose steerage. Ships get pushed by currents or caught by sudden wind gusts. And a fully loaded container ship moving at even a fraction of its normal speed carries kinetic energy that is almost impossible to describe in terms a non-engineer can fully appreciate. The forces involved are not in pounds. They're in millions of pounds, in forces large enough to shear through steel columns that look, from a distance, like they should be impervious to anything. The Sunshine Skyway Bridge in Florida was destroyed in 1980 when a cargo ship called the MV Summit Venture collided with one of its support columns during a sudden squall. 35 people died. The collapse took seconds. The Bay Bridge's pier protection systems, the concrete dolphins and protective fenders around the tower foundations, are designed to absorb collision energy. But they were designed around ship sizes and speeds that existed in the 1980s and 1990s. The container ships calling at the Port of Oakland today are significantly larger than those design assumptions. And the question of what happens if an ultra-large container vessel loses steerage at the wrong moment in the wrong location is a question that maritime engineers have been running simulations on, with results that they describe in careful, measured language that still somehow manages to convey genuine alarm.
I'm out on the water again. The conditions are rough today, but it's crucial we document this. And a container ship just passed under the bridge. Did you see the size of that thing? It's absolutely impossible. Wow. The ship is enormous. I genuinely cannot convey its scale in words. The bridge above it looks almost small by comparison. Which is a perspective that should be impossible. And watching that ship move through the channel, it's a profound reminder of our connection to the sea and the immense power of industry. I find myself doing the involuntary mental calculation. What if? What if something goes wrong? What if the engine fails and the current takes it left instead of right? The margin between the shipping channel and the tower foundations is not as large as you want it to be.
The underwater foundations. This is where the story goes deepest. Literally, the towers of the western span sit on caissons, massive concrete structures sunk to the bay floor and extending into the sediment beneath. They were built using a technology called open dredge caissons, which means the concrete shells were floated into position and the material inside them was dredged out under atmospheric pressure while workers and equipment operated inside. The men who built these foundations worked in conditions that were dangerous by any standard: dark, wet, unstable, confined. But what concerns modern engineers is not just the historical working conditions. It's the geology. The sediment beneath San Francisco Bay is not uniform. There are layers of soft clay, layers of dense sand, layers of material deposited over thousands of years by rivers and tides. And nested within this stratigraphy is a phenomenon called liquefaction potential, the tendency of saturated, loose-grained sediment to temporarily lose its structural integrity during strong seismic shaking and behave more like a liquid than a solid. The caisson foundations of the Bay Bridge's towers are embedded in sediment, with varying liquefaction potential across the bay. In the worst-case seismic scenarios that California's Geological Survey considers credible, a major rupture on the Hayward Fault, which runs directly through the East Bay and is considered by seismologists to be the most dangerous fault in the United States by some measures. The shaking at the bridge site could trigger significant liquefaction beneath and around the tower foundations. And the interaction between seismic loading, foundation liquefaction, and the dynamic behavior of the cable-supported spans above is a system of such complexity that engineers admit their models have significant uncertainty. Not uncertainty that paralyzes them, but uncertainty that keeps them honest. Uncertainty that keeps the lights burning in that control room at 3 in the morning.
The last thing the inspection team showed me today was an underwater video. Footage from an ROV, a remotely operated vehicle. As you can see, the team is tracking its progress in real time. That was sent down along the base of one of the western tower foundations. The video is extraordinary in its own way. You can see where the concrete meets the sediment. Scour. It's a slow process, but it's relentless. Every millimeter of sediment that moves away from that foundation is a millimeter less support.
None of this means the Bay Bridge is going to fall tomorrow. Let that be completely clear. The engineers who monitor this structure are extraordinary professionals, running one of the most sophisticated infrastructure surveillance operations in the country. The sensors, the inspection programs, the retrofit work, the monitoring systems, all of it represents decades of serious, committed engineering effort to understand what this bridge is doing and respond intelligently. But here is the truth that the data tells. The truth that engineering reports tell if you read them carefully enough and between the lines enough. America's bridges are aging. Their original design lives are expiring. The assumptions baked into 1930s and 1940s and 1950s engineering were not wrong so much as incomplete. Incomplete because the science wasn't there yet, because the computational tools didn't exist, because nobody yet had data on what 80 or 90 years of load cycles did to high-strength steel wire inside a sealed cable. The Bay Bridge is not uniquely endangered, but it is uniquely critical and uniquely, absolutely irreplaceable in any short time frame. There is no alternative route that handles its traffic volume. There is no redundancy in the system. If the Bay Bridge comes out of service, partially or fully, for any reason, the consequences for the Bay Area economy, for emergency response capability, for the supply chains that feed Northern California are almost too large to model. The Federal Highway Administration knows this. Caltrans knows this. The independent engineering consultants know this. The inspection teams know this. And the question they're all living with, the question that motivates the monitoring, the retrofitting, the endless cycle of assessment and repair and assessment again, is whether the resources allocated to this problem are commensurate with its actual scale, whether the funding matches the risk, whether America is treating its most important infrastructure the way it deserves to be treated, or whether it is doing what it has done for decades, deferring, managing, watching carefully, and hoping.
I've been on this bridge for 2 days now. I've been inside it, beneath it. It's a marvel of engineering, but deeply unsettling. This bridge holds a hidden life. Alongside it on the water. And the thing that stays with me, more than anything, is the weight of what we've uncovered. The traffic that has literally never stopped while I've been here. At 2 in the morning, there were still cars and trucks passing overhead. Before dawn, there were already delivery vehicles. Rush hour was a river of light. 110,000 trips per day. Every one of those people trusting, implicitly and completely. A structure that was built by men with slide rules and pencils. That is genuinely a monument to human engineering ambition. And that is carrying, somewhere inside its steel, hidden stress fractures and microscopic corrosion, vibrating, a weakness that its builders could not have anticipated. and that we are only now beginning to fully understand.